Representative Ayanna Pressley on Tuesday introduced an amendment to the House election reform bill that would lower the voting age from 18 to 16 in federal elections. I am honored and excited to be introducing my very first amendment on the House floor, an amendment to H.R. 1, the For the People Act. Pressley, a first-term congresswoman who represents the 7th Congressional District, Massachusetts, said on Twitter, "Oh, they overuse Twitter so much nowadays, I swear. My amendment will lower the voting age from 18 to 16, allowing our youth to have a seat at the table of our democracy." Pressley argued in a succession of tweets that citizens who are 16 and 17 make substantial contributions to America's labor force and to their local economy through paying taxes. Tweets are down here. Across this nation, young people are leading the way from gun violence to climate change to the future of work. They are organizing, mobilizing, and calling us to action. Her amendment will require states to permit an individual to register to vote or vote in an election for federal office held in a state on the grounds of the individual's age if the individual will be at least 16 years of age on the date of the election. The amendment is part of a sweeping anti-corruption and voting rights bill known as H.R. 1 that Democrats in the House are expected to pass this week. The measure, among other things, aims to expand voting rights by creating automatic voter registration and making Election Day a national holiday for federal workers. Senate Majority Coward Mitch McConnell has said the bill would not be brought for the floor for a vote in the upper chamber. Lowering the voter age requirement to 16 has gained increasing support in states and cities across the nation. Democratic state lawmakers in Oregon introduced legislation to lower the state's voting age last month. So, in case you couldn't tell, I think this is a good idea. But I can already see, I guess I am cynical, and I do oftentimes let my mind wander into what others are thinking about it, usually in a negative way. But I already see the main argument being something to the effect of, people at 16 don't know what they're doing, or that these are people who aren't knowledgeable about things. And I guess what pisses me off, right, is that every time I hear that, I always think of a older person, someone that's 40, 50, 60, who, if this child happened to agree with them, would believe that child was smart, that they should be able to participate in discourse. And thus, it's really their way of blanketing rebuke toward a group of people that they know, based on their different circumstance, will probably have a different perspective on politics and what party to support than themselves. I guess it reminds me of when we give children, right, for example, credit for knowing things that we find impressive, just information gathering, being impressed by how young they are when they know history or have some talent that we think an older person should have. But then if they say or do something that we don't like, we chalk it up to their age and then, prove to be condescending toward them. So, and, anecdotal stuff here, but I don't think I'm any different, or rather, I don't think that the 2 years between being 16 and 18 really were that changing for me. Like, as far as just the way I reasoned and did things, I'm sure some psychologist out there can do an evaluation and say, oh no, we've proven that in those extra 700 days you have a massive development of the brain. But I don't see it. So will it pass? Maybe in the House, because I still think some of the Democrats would be opposed to this, just because there's always a few that make it to where we can't have nice things. In the Senate, absolutely not, and that's because Republicans, see, I talk about views and perspectives they have that I think are just completely asinine and backwards and make no sense. But they're really, really smart when it comes to understanding who their base of support is and doing things that are in their favor. Case in point, while the Democrats have been sitting here accomplishing effectively nothing in the House for since they took it back 2 months ago, the Republicans have continued stacking up the courts, and with those lifetime appointments to the courts, they're going to have their party is going, or rather their ideology will have a longer impact than the Democrats currently serving in either chamber. And this is kind of what is so funny about having this really weak left wing where you have a couple of people, a couple of Democrats that try to fight hard on this stuff, like Ro Khanna, and then you have all these Republicans who are just they're tough as nails. They don't compromise. They get to do whatever they want, say whatever they want, and get away with it. So they'll be completely cognizant of the fact that if this is allowed to pass, this amendment, and it goes to the Senate, and they are able to vote on it, they're going to quickly remember, oh yeah, most of my voters happen to be elderly. Uh, are there some outliers? Yeah, but not enough for me to be convinced that having more young people get involved with this is going to be beneficial to my career. That's this. The more I think about like why this amendment by itself wouldn't pass, let alone the election reform bill, I just keep thinking about how screwed up the political system is, where you literally have two parties that are just filled with a bunch of pricks that will oppose anything and everything as long as it means helping them stay in power just a few more years longer. So this is good on her. Sad it won't pass, but nice idea. Maybe one day the tide will change.